Hello, 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 and welcome. I'm Meron Khalili. We are DiEM25, a radical political movement for Europe, and this is another live discussion with our coordinating team featuring subversive ideas you won't hear anywhere else. And today we're doing something a bit different because right now we're deep in electoral campaigning mode in two countries, Greece and the state of Bremen in Germany. As far as we know, this is the first ever for a progressive movement running in two elections in two different countries, just a week apart. Our political parties, Mera25, are on the ballot, as we said, in national elections in Greece, German state of Bremen, and these are two very different bids. In Greece, our party has been in parliament for 4 years. We're led by Yanis, former finance minister. In Bremen, on the other hand, we're building something from the ground up with a local dedicated group of passionate first-time activists. So tonight we're going to check in on some of our candidates and volunteers on the campaign trail and see what is electoral campaigning like in 2023, what challenges are they facing, how's the field looking, and how are they feeling for their chances. And you out there, you watching us on YouTube, if you've got thoughts, comments, rants, concerns, questions, anything you want to throw at us, put them in the YouTube chat and we'll put them to our panel. And now let's move to Yanis, who's just returned, if I understand it right, from a trip of 5 cities in 3 days. How's it going?
I haven't returned anywhere. I am on the move. We did have that a few days ago. Now we are on another such 4-city tour. I was in Trikala in central Greece this morning, this afternoon. Now I'm at the port city of Volos, which is a very interesting place, university town, port, a place traditionally on the progressive side of politics. But unfortunately, during this never-ending crisis of ours, the Euro crisis that began in 2010, the municipality has been taken over by a person that can only be described as a mafioso, extreme right-wing football team owner who uses mafia-style methods to intimidate progressives. He's at the forefront of ecocide, of water privatization, of turning a local cement factory into a industrial level grade refuse burning site. So they burn garbage effectively to produce electricity in the center of the city here. And anyone who objects is subjected to terror. Of course, fully condoned by the right-wing government, which Mera25 here in Greece is trying to depose during this election. So you can imagine the stakes. We have managed, comrades, and I'm saying this with a great deal of pride, but also horror, we've managed to anger the most powerful oligarchs in Greece, not just this gentleman here, who's gone out of his way to vilify everybody involved in DiEM25 and Mera25. But, that's quite fair because, we call him out for what he is, a mafia-style boss. And he's out there to get us. Threats have been issued, not only him, but also the main oligarchs running the show in Athens, sometimes from London, ship owners, magnates. You see, I think everybody's familiar with the failure of the Greek state in 2010, the bankruptcy, the insolvency of the Greek state. The powers that be in Brussels, in Frankfurt, in Berlin, in Washington, conspired when Greece failed, when the Greek state became bankrupt and the Greek banks became bankrupt, along with the German banks, the French banks. Don't forget that it was a wholesale financial capitalist crisis in 2008, which, of course, in places like Greece, the weakest link, took on just a gigantic dimension, not least because the Greek state was not able, unlike the German state, like the French state, didn't have the deep pockets to bail out the bankers and bail out the privateers. That insolvency, that failure of the Greek state, which was arrested by the largest bailout loans ever given to any country anywhere, in absolute terms, not in relative terms. The first bailout was 110 billion. The second was 130 billion. The third one was 86 billion. The fourth one was the equivalent of 110 billion. These are bailouts. These are monies that were transferred from the workers and the people of Europe, including Slovenia, poor countries like Slovenia, and rich countries like Germany. They were transferred on to the bankers and to the oligarchs in this country, not to the people of Greece. There was no solidarity with Greece. There was solidarity with the worst oligarchic interests. So, once those bailouts took place, we were locked in to perpetual debt bondage. And once our debt was well and truly unsustainable, our debt to the international lenders of the European Union, the European Central Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, at that point onwards, they just took everything. They took public ownership of public assets, and they gave them to their friends. And for the last 5 years or so, they're in the process of effectively taking people's homes. 2 million homes and businesses are being taken away and given to vulture funds belonging to the oligarchs stemming out of both Greece and, of course, the international oligarchy. The profit rates of these people, this is what you must understand. This is not vindictiveness. There's huge amount of money to be made. The vulture funds will take at least 70 billion from the private sector. They come to you. You have a home, you have a mortgage of, let's say 100,000. They buy that mortgage for 3,000. In other words, they buy the right to extract 100,000 from you, and they pay you 3,000 for it. Can you get that? Shall I say it once more? They buy the right to extract 100,000 from you for a mere 3,000. So even if they, grab your home and auction it off and throw you into the street or your business, and they only get 50,000, why do they care? They spend 3,000, they make 47 net profit. These profit rates, invest 3,000 to get 47, don't exist in capitalism. This is a bonanza for the worst oligarchs and vulture funds in the world. At the same time, they get our airports, they get our ports, they get our roads, motorways that have been partly built by taxpayers' money, partly built by European taxpayers' money. And the oligarchs take all this. And there are about 5 oligarchs, Greek, plus several funds that come from abroad, like Macquarie, that has taken over our electricity distribution network, Suez, that are trying to get our water, Lafarge, the French cement factory that is taking over the cement factory here in Volos, turning it into a power station, burning garbage. You can imagine the effect on the environment. And we, Mera25, I think you should all be proud of this. We actually named them. We are the only party that dared stand in parliament and named names and numbers. Who extracted how much from the Greek people? The result is that we are persona non grata in the media, because the same oligarchs own the media, all of the media. Every single channel is owned. Television channel, radio channel is owned by one of them. One of them, a certain Mr. Marinakis, who also owns a football team, for good measure. Another oligarch, not the guy here in Volos, the mafioso that I was telling you about. Marinakis is a big fish. These people have absolutely no compunction whatsoever. On the one hand, I'm just bringing in lots of different themes, but just to give you a whiff of what's going on. There are television channels like Marinakis' Mega and Alafouzos' Sky Television. those channels on a daily basis demonize anybody who dares speak out in favor of the peace process in Ukraine. Because for them, the NATO line, war till the end, till Putin falls or Moscow is taken by Ukrainians. In other words, a ludicrous project, which will drag on for 10 years, turning Ukraine into a new Afghanistan. Their channels, television channels, are, they are presenting themselves as the greatest supporters of Ukraine, which of course they're not. They're supporters of the continuation of a war that will be catastrophic for Ukraine. They vilify anybody, Mera 25 in particular, me in particular, for advocating a peace process. And you know what? These same owners, Alafouzos of Sky, Marinakis of Mega, they own the tankers that transport the vast majority of Vladimir Putin's oil. Now, this is, if you want, a monstrous hypocrisy. Okay. Now, the other day, one of these channels, Mega, banned every single Mera 25 representative from the channel. Yesterday, Michalis Kytharidis, our comrade who is running in Thessaloniki, was about to go to the studio and he was called and told not to bother. Our video clip, which is by law, must be screened, we were told, don't worry, it won't be screened. So they even flout the electoral law, which says that during an election campaign, parliamentary parties have a certain amount of free airtime on television. They say, no, you badmouthed our owner, you're out. Last weekend, one of the journalists working for a newspaper by Mr. Marinakis, actually a nice guy, somebody who has interviewed me many times in the past, in the last 7 years or so. He asked me for an interview and he sent me 11, 12 serious questions. And I sat down and spent hours answering them to the best of my ability. We ended up with a 1,500 word interview. Poor guy. At the very last moment, he was told by Marinakis, "You're not publishing this article, this interview in my newspaper. F off." So that article was never published. We put it on our website and said, here you can read the article commissioned by a Tanea is the name of the newspaper, Tanea journalist, an interview that particular journalist was not allowed to publish on his newspaper. And does anybody care? No. The real tragedy, however, is the way in which the establishment has managed to appropriate the political system, including the left. You may recall that in 2015, I was part of the government with Alexis Tsipras and Syriza for 5 stupendous months. We caused a lot of trouble to the oligarchs without frontiers by resisting their bailout plans, their plunder of Greece in the name of the oligarchy without frontiers. The people of Greece stood by us, even though every single channel vilified us. Even though Mario Draghi, who was then the president of the European Central Bank, shut down the Greek banks. This is an act of financial terrorism. They shut down our banks in order to force the Greek people to force us out of government so that they wouldn't have to deal with a government that didn't agree with them. And tragically, we called Alexis Tsipras, who was prime minister then, and I was a very loyal minister to his prime ministership. He called for a referendum. Truly, I didn't expect us to win it because of all the vilification, the media working against us, the ATMs not functioning. You can imagine. Not only did we win it, but we got 62% of people backing us. And this is where the tragedy begins, because that very night of the referendum, Alexis Tsipras, my former comrade, decides to capitulate to the oligarchy. And I decide not to follow him. And I resigned the ministry. And since then, we've been at loggerheads. He spent 4 years in government implementing the worst austerity, the worst privatization, the worst looting of the Greek people on behalf of the left. That was lethal for the left. One of the reasons why we created DiEM25 was that great defeat of the left here in Greece. And remember that we created DiEM25 in February 2016, 6 months later, after that capitulation by Tsipras. We created it in Berlin to signify the internationalism in action that we proclaimed and which constitutes our very political DNA. We didn't create a political party here in Greece. We didn't go electoral, as we used to say. We were hoping to create circumstances for a coalescence of progressives around DiEM25, of progressive parties that could take our European Green New Deal and run with it. But by 2018, 2 years later, it was clear that the Tsipras Syriza government were not going to change their minds. They were going to go headlong into serving the oligarchy. Initially, reluctantly, at some point, enthusiastically. And they are still called the coalition of the radical left party. So you can imagine something worse than Thatcher. Doing what Thatcher did, only worse, on behalf of foreign powers, in the name of the radical left. And that will give you an idea of the tragedy of Greece. At the same time, we have a communist party, a party of about 6.5%, which unfortunately is not interested in collaborating with us. I will say something that may seem far-fetched, but this is a communist party whose greatest nightmare would be the revolution. They wouldn't know what to do if the revolution took place. They don't care about the revolution. They care only about preserving their purity and preserving themselves as the monopoly of the youth vote, in particular, on the left of the fallen and compromised Syriza party. They attack us viciously, the Communist Party. We never attack them. We never reciprocate. We are good Christians when it comes to them. We turn the other cheek. But it's getting a bit tiring, especially when they called me George Soros's man, that they consider Mera25 to be the last vestiges, the last reinforcements of capitalism, unbelievable stuff. All in the service of maintaining a cartel of political parties. The political system, and I have no doubt that you folks in comrades in Germany, Mera25 Germany, you will, once you get bigger than you are now, you will come against this cartel of the existing political parties, Greens, centrists, FDP, SDP, even Die Linke, who consider parties like ours to be entrants in the same way that Coca-Cola or Pepsi-Cola, if a local company comes out and produces a local cola that does well, Pepsi-Cola and Coca-Cola bind forces against. They forget their antipathy and conflicts, and they bind together to prevent the cartel from the newcomer. So instead of creating a left unity, we are now being bombarded from all fronts, from the right, the extreme right, the Syriza compromised former comrades, the communists. It is as if Mera25 is a common enemy of the political system. And I suppose it is, because we are truly democratic. We come with fresh ideas. We we are radicals in the sense that we want to overturn capitalism, but at the same time, we make proposals, very rational proposals of what could happen tomorrow morning, a long time before socialism comes. So that really angers the Communist Party, because for them, unless socialism comes, nothing good can happen. And I have to tell you, between you and I, maybe it's because of my bodily fatigue, it is tiring. it really gets tiring, comrades. All the vilification, the constant need to prove that you're not an elephant, the constant need to answer ludicrous questions. I mean, yesterday I was in the debate, the television debate, 6 political leaders. We had 6 different themes. One was the economy and growth and development. The second one was, what was it? Foreign policy. The third one was the state, institutions, justice. The fourth one was energy and the environment. The fifth one was, God knows what, I don't remember what it was. Some like the youth, the young, the next generation, and so on. And you get one question per theme from one journalist sitting opposite, representing an oligarch. So, you can imagine how much I had to say about the economy. The question that I was asked was, Mr. Varoufakis, you consider the euro to be a problematic currency. How can anyone trust you to be in government alongside with them? Second question, if the Turkish army were to take a barren rock in the middle of the Aegean, what would your first move be? Which is an impossible question, because if you say I'm going to order our armed forces to respond, immediately you're a warmonger, and you're keen to start a war. This is how they portray you. If you say you are going to hold back and try to have negotiations, you're immediately a turncoat, a national traitor. So they ask questions that, the kind of question like Mr. Varoufakis, why do you murder and eat children in the morning? Because, even if you start saying, but I don't, immediately you're negative. If you say I do, you're a murderer. So that was the kind, I'm telling you, I'm tired. But at the very same time, and here's how I'm going to end with good news. When you're out there and 15-year-olds, 80-year-olds come to you and they say, I just want to hold your hand because you give me hope. Then you're revived. Then hope comes back. Then energy comes back. But now that I'm in a mood of confessing with you, I don't mind any of this except the attacks by leftists. That is the worst part of the job, comrades. To be attacked by leftists who really are looking at you as the worst possible enemy. They really hate people who are, maybe in their heart, they are still keen to overthrow capitalism. If they had the choice between killing you and overthrowing capitalism, they would choose the former. And that is sad. But on a good note, back in 2019, when we were running also against a small party of former comrades who split from Syriza called Popular Unity, Laiki Enotita, as well as others who never believed in Mera 25, in Team 25. They considered us to be too appetite, too lifestyle, too Brian Eno, Roger Waters, Julian Assange oriented people. Well, the good news is that now they are part of us. They've joined us. We have forged an alliance for rupture, we call it, Mera 25 Alliance for Rupture. And we are, if opinion polls, which are actually good, they show us almost doubling our vote, almost. If those opinion polls are realized on the 21st of May, we may be onto building a new, large, left, progressive, green alliance. And then the oligarchs will be really pissed. Thank you, Meron.
Thank you, Yanis, for that very candid and open assessment. Fascinating and admittedly depressing in places, but very encouraging. Really, really appreciate it and very interesting. Judith Meyer from Berlin has been part of the Mera 25 campaign in Greece for quite a while now, more than a few months, I think, a few weeks at least. What's your assessment in the spirit of DiEM25 internationalism? How are you feeling about everything there, and what's going on for you?
It's very inspiring. I love seeing it all come together, and I love seeing how far we've come, because I also visited Greece for the 2019 campaign and a few times since then. But especially the contrast with the 2019 campaign is very big. We've seen that with the election of well, in 2019, Mera25 got 9 seats in parliament, and since then they have just come so much further. They've professionalized in so many ways. They have abilities to reach people that we can only dream of in our other countries where Mera is just getting started. There's so much production of materials to convince people, obviously, videos from parliamentary interventions, but also on the streets. When you look on the streets, it's like they have now stands in major cities, sometimes like 10 stands, I think here in Athens or something, where you can just walk along the pedestrian zones and suddenly you come across like a bigger area with seating, even, where you can stop by, sit down and watch some videos or get some material about Mera25. It's quite remarkable. Compared to that, our campaign in Bremen is still on the activist level, so that also has some appeal. I think it's great. People come across our activists also in the pedestrian zones, but not with this huge area with seats and videos, but rather doing stunts, you know, like almost like Extinction Rebellion kind of things that draw attention in the public space. Also with video projections, very modern stuff. I love it. So I like these two campaigns in different ways. And what is the same in both is that they both have international support. So people come from other countries to support the local groups. They come for a weekend. They come for a week. In my case, I came for a bit longer, but it's I think it's good for both sides, both for the people who are coming and for the people working locally, to see that we're all one. We're all fighting for the same goals, for the same policies, and so on. So I can give you some examples of what connects these two campaigns on a policy side. Is, for example, housing. Housing is a topic, a very big topic in Greece, where people are starting to lose their homes, and in Bremen, where basically the same happens, only that a lot more people are already renting in Bremen. Reversing austerity is a common theme. Reversing privatizations, especially keeping the health service in public hands, electricity prices. I mean, these are topics that don't even just apply to Germany and Greece. I think they're European or even worldwide topics. But also smaller things like education, better funding for teachers, moving against the privatization of education is a common topic. Police violence. Surprising, isn't it, that both Greece and Germany took a turn towards police violence in the past few years or longer. We are seeing a trend here. Pro-refugee policies. Obviously, in Greece, that means stopping the dying on the shores of the Mediterranean. And in Bremen, well, there's less that they can do, but they're also against Frontex. They also want to provide a more dignified welcome to the refugees that wind up in Bremen. Democratization. A lot of ideas for how to bring more citizens into the process are also part of a big part of the program in both Bremen and Greece. And then there are some things that only make sense on a national level, like Mera Greece is aiming to reduce VAT, which makes sense because it's currently 24% in Greece, and in Germany it's 19%. So there's more room for reducing it. And national topics like what do you do in a conflict with Turkey obviously don't apply to Bremen. Instead of reducing VAT, Bremen has a very interesting idea to create a basic dividend for its citizens from Bremen corporations, using also an e-commerce tax like Barcelona does, and a special fee on cruise ships, so that Bremen citizens, Bremen is one of the poorest states in Germany, would get extra financial support. So I think that it's really inspiring in that we're all pushing in the same direction, and very often with the exact same policies. But where that's not possible, it's still very very similar. And yeah, I love to see this commonality, which is much greater than in the existing European parties, like the ones that are represented in the European Parliament, that have some kind of alliance, but they don't really have much in common beyond that. They don't generally go to support each other, but they're also on policy level, they can be in completely different camps in what they're trying to do. So I really think that this is the way forward.
Thanks for that, Judith. As you mentioned, it's our international membership that participates in our local actions, and also our members who help to shape our campaigns and co-write our policy programs. I mean, it's really a transnational, pan-European spirit, and I'm really excited to bring in now the Bremen team, who are of candidates and also volunteers who are powering this startup campaign. I think Judith gives us a nice segue into introducing Jan Genin, Leander Rössler, Nomazulu Thata, and of course our resident Johannes Fair, who watchers of our live stream will be familiar with, but he's also over there. So why don't we move to Mera 25, that's the name of our political party in Bremen, Mera 25 Bremen Central. Johannes and the guys, welcome.
Thanks, Meran. Very exciting to join you. And yeah, there's another guy from Berlin that was sent out to help one of our Mera 25's campaign, me here in Bremen. We're in the midst of, lots of campaigning material in our little headquarters, so to say, with a lot of posters, a lot of chaos around us, some weeks of exciting and exhausting campaigning behind us. It's great fun. It's a very different campaign than in Greece, because we are really starting from zero up, not much money, but excited people, international support, as Judith mentioned. And yeah, it has been some weeks, and now I will hand over to the locals, Jan and Leander, who are also candidates here for us and who can tell you a little bit about how the experience was for them.
Yeah. Hi, me, Jan, Bremen Collective. Yeah, I don't think the difference could be any bigger from what we are doing here in the smallest state of Germany, Bremen, compared to the fight you are fighting over there in Greece. So first of all, we stand with full solidarity here with you, listening to all the trouble and all this, the barriers and the power you are fighting against. So we have our full solidarity. We're following your campaign closely, as close as possible here. And we're with you, and we hope to contribute to the overall success of our thing and to the fight you are doing over there. Well, even though the difference is just vast, I think there are some similarities. Thanks, Judith, up front for this excellent introduction. Beside of having the same goals which unite us, which is working for the many instead of for the few, and changing the course of the general perception of politics and to see what's possible over there. I think there's also similarity of that we have also encountered, let's say, borders and limits of policy doing here in Bremen. Well, from first hand, right? We have experienced how impenetrable the political system generally is as it is. So here in Germany, we have a 5% hurdle, meaning that either you reach 5% of the votes, generally you give to a party, or you basically have no person in parliament. So that, first of all, is a big objective for us, because as a party, we have been around as DMers here since 2018, but as a political party, we basically coming out of the blue, totally unknown, nobody knew us. So that is a big step we're doing, and that is a big challenge. And yeah, the other parties having these huge budgets, well established, pumping hundreds of thousands into state campaigns here, full-time politicians, with experts setting their agenda. And yeah, so we're reaching also the limits, although we are very far, unfortunately, of pissing off the really big guys. But we are reaching some limits of the system, I would say. And yeah, just quite disappointing for me, for us, I guess, to see the role of the media. So I don't think they're really able of picking up the true questions of the people here at the moment. So that's from the start. So the questions being made are just out of the needs, somewhat out of context of the reality of the people here. And then the media coverage, well, we are fighting, struggling, we're doing our best, and we are working with all of the support from all of our DMS and MERA people worldwide or European-wide at the highest, most professional level possible, but the media coverage the response is very low. So we don't get too much attention, we don't getting articles, not few discussion panels being invited on. The coverage is way too low for us to be able to get our progressive ideas through. So this is something we are very struggling with here, and we're reaching some limits and some borders here. And it is giving me personally a hard time, and felt very insecure at the beginning. And then also I had my times where it was tough to keep up faith and power, especially at the beginning of the campaign. But when we started to get out with our flyers, with the posters, with the actions, talking to the people on the streets, that is basically where, from my perception, everything changed. The response is amazing. People coming up to us on the street, shouting, "You're the only ones who don't want to make a fool out of us." Or people coming from the side and pushing your back, "Good luck, wishing you all the best." You bump into people who voted already for you via letter, or they just say, "I'm definitely going to vote for you." So the response is amazing. It is the fact that these people not only have just read our program and got excited by our progressive ideas, but also the fact that they understand and they get the idea of our international approach, which is totally new to them, and they appreciate it. Yeah, that's amazing. That is fantastic and fascinating, and that it gives me personally a lot of energy. And one thing which is, as of this is the last weekend, so on Sunday is the election, and as for me personally, I think the exact figures, the exact outcome of the votes on Sunday for me is already secondary, because what we've done here is we planted a seed, and the best thing to see is that it works, that we have the right ideas for the right time for the people, and they respond to it. And that is fantastic, because we are contributing with this little seed, and we would like so much to see this grow all over Europe, everywhere, all over Germany, and we can contribute, and we are contributing to this. So this is already a fantastic thing. Yeah, I think the sign of times are definitely on our side, and this is not just for us to Bremen, but for us all.
Yes, besides, of course, not focusing so much on, all these obstacles and all these hurdles which were put in our way, and I don't know, the press not really being cooperative. We somehow also need to empower ourselves, be our own press, and find ways to work with given constraints. And this would never have been possible without the true international solidarity we had from our friends from it's actually hard to mention all the countries we got support from, and it's been outstanding how many comrades from all over Europe, even far beyond Europe, came here. And we wouldn't have made it until this point if there hadn't been enough people crazy enough and convinced enough and being selfless enough to travel all the way here to help us collect the signatures, to get well, to be allowed to be voted for in the first place, and now doing performance arts on the streets a lot, because I don't know, we actually don't have so much money as a movement, so we somehow need to work around it, and then also bringing messages in a completely different way than I've seen before, at least in Germany, from regular politic campaigning. I mean, yeah, it's just not being boring in the same way that German people are used to it, and also getting the harvest and getting the response on the street that I also think we, to a certain point, deserve for being as courageous as we are, and being as against all the odds as we try to be.
I wanted to just add at the end that I also should send regards from the rest of the team who cannot be in the live stream with us today. So Anja, Katrin, Thilo, Sarah, Madita, all the others who also, parts of them joined during the time, send their solidarity to everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, guys. Nomazulu, I see you nodding your head there as Leander and Jan were talking. Tell us.
Yeah, firstly, I would like to thank the people who came to assist us, internationalists, you know, from the Netherlands, you know, Portugal, and also our comrades here in Germany, you know, they came to Bremen to assist us, and I was really moved. I had such great hope, you know, and you know, this solidarity, first of all, among ourselves, and then, you know, going out spreading the same message of solidarity. I think that was an experience for me. Yeah, I live outside Bremen, a district outside. It's Bremen, yes, but it's outside Bremen. So I would like to talk about my experiences that I had during this campaign. And it was extremely exciting, to say the least. Much as I would have wanted to interact with people of my age, but I found myself interacting with young people, you know, actually who know this party. Surprised, because this party is new, Bremen especially, you know, and they were first-time voters. They are first-time voters, you know. They are pupils from schools, you know. They've just turned 18, you know, or they are university students, you know, and their questions were very, very positive. You know, they spoke about climate change, you know. What is your party saying about climate change? What is your party saying about migration? What is your party saying about people who are dying in the Mediterranean Sea? You know, these are young people, you know. This is how political astute they are, you know. I was so moved. I was positively moved to know that, you know, this party, we may not make it on Sunday, but this party is for the youth, for the coming generation, you know. As Jan said, you know, we are setting up a foundation for them, you know. If we make it, this is what we want. We want to make it. But then the thing is, if we did not, we should never be very disappointed. We should say to ourselves, we have set up a foundation for our children and children's children. You know, when they start articulating politics like, look, we want peace. Is your party talking about peace? Look, whoever thought that in Europe there will be a war, you know, these are questions that you should, I found myself talking with them, you know. It was extremely exciting. They would say, for instance, we have got problems about energy. We may not have had problems in energy the previous winter. What is your party saying, you know, about energy crisis here in Europe? What is your party saying about Europe that seems to be, going in oblivion, to say the least? We don't know what direction Europe is taking us, What is your party saying about the Nord Stream pipelines that were blown up? Who blew them? Why is the government not investigating? Such, touchy questions, They would ask, don't you realize that energy politics is linked to national security? And what is your party saying? They were very strong questions. I was able to tell them that, look, migration and climate change are linked together. If migration is taking place, it simply means that they're affected by climate change from the south. And then I was able to tell them that, look, this is not the time to tell the youth that so and so is to blame, China is to blame, or global north is to blame for climate change. I think that time is gone. The time now is, how do we, global south and global north, tackle effectively climate change? What are the alternatives of fossil fuels, to renewable energy? Those were questions that kept me going. There is a place where I go every Saturday, with my flyers. That's where I meet them, or in buses, or in the marketplace. I loved going to the marketplace where I was, giving them. They will also ask me, look, we are from the African continent here. What drives you, to be in this politics? And then I'll tell them, look, the MERA is an international party, and we are looking to Africa as a neighbor continent that has got a lot of potential between Europe and Africa. So, our politics, our speaking, our communication with these young people was very broad, and I was really touched. And I could speak more, but I think let me give a chance to others to speak.
Thank you very much for that. Lovely. Really, really appreciate your input on that, and lovely to hear of your experience. We're getting some. Well, there's one comment in the chat here. Someone asks, I think a rather cynical comment, really. Does DiEM25 have any achievable positive policies? Well, I would encourage you to go to the MERA25 site of Greece or of Germany, of MERA25 Bremen, and there are concrete policies that could be implemented tomorrow on housing, energy, climate policy. There's a 36-page PDF. I don't know if any of the guys from Bremen, before we move to another speaker, would like to chime in and summarize in 1 minute or so what exactly we can offer in Bremen, which must be a question surely that people have come up to you in the street and say, okay, what are you for? Because we're not a protest party. We've got some very innovative crowdsourced proposals from some of the best minds in the progressive world. Perhaps you'd like to chime in, guys.
Should we maybe, because our program, of course, has a lot of proposals, maybe we can each mention one. Mine would be for sure free public transport, because that's a kind of something that we, German government spent 100 billion on the military last year and doesn't have money for free public transport in their cities. So it's kind of ridiculous. So that's something we could do tomorrow if we wanted to, and if the right people would have the say.
For me, it would be probably about having people's councils and having an outlook on models of democracy which can be as stable or even more stable as the current models, while at the same time being fairer. And we have great suggestions regarding these issues.
Yes, I think you did mention some before, but maybe the person was not in. So we stand there for what we call the new Bremen solidarity. So we want to make solidarity in all sorts of directions. So this works into all directions, meaning between the people. We want to change legislation and the way we do politics to make solidarity possible between people, but also from the city to the people. And this involves also the economy and their responsibility and them being also solidarity with the people. And this includes many stuff, as already mentioned, a few. For instance, yeah, as housing was mentioned before. So we are planning on directly enforce and increase the budget for many good projects. There are already in Bremen, for instance, Housing First projects, who are there to get people off the streets directly into housing, because the right to have a house is directly linked to many other crucial elemental rights, such as participation, health, and so on and so forth. So this is something we would be speaking out for directly and making ourselves strong for. So housing policy.
Thank you for that. So there you go, a summary of their policy platform. Couple of minutes. Okay, let's move to Eric Edman, who is now our Mera25's spokesperson in Greece and has become quite a regular on the oligarch-owned TV stations when they have the guts to let him on. How's it going?
Yeah, I've been rubbing shoulders with all the wrong people. It's been a hell of an experience. They don't have a choice, Mehran. That's the only reason I'm there. They're forced by law to give us a certain platform. And because I'm the spokesperson of the party, they force them to say, no, it's the last sort of legal that allows us some kind of platform. So we try to make the most of it. But very quickly on the question that was just asked about the achievable policies of meras, the meras in general, it's an understandable question towards the left in general, because we do have this kind of, like, we're known for being a bit pie in the sky as the political family. However, it's very unfair towards Diem and specifically towards the meras, because one of the main pillars on which we base our whole identity and our political thinking is being realistic. That's what the R in Mera in Greece stands for. And I also know that in Germany, the sort of motto of the party is realistic, rebellious, and radical. Realistic means not to wait for some kind of socialist revolution until we change the world, but rather building that change on sort of steps, on stepping stones towards that socialism. Small ideas like what our comrades, friends in Bremen said, that open up society's appetite towards a different way of running society, of running the economy, of running politics, and the rest of it. And that unlocks bigger and bigger doors towards more and more radical solutions once we've proven that these smaller ones are effective. They mentioned some of them. In Greece, we're even more humble because of how extreme the situation is. We're talking about things like lowering VAT. VAT in Greece is at 24%. This is in a broken economy. In Germany, which is multiple times stronger in terms of financial power, the VAT is 19%. And in broken little Greece is 24%. This isn't an economic policy. It is a political policy forced on Greece in order to subjugate it. What we're saying is, let's lower VAT. It's a very small radical thing, however, because to lower VAT means, for the first time in over a decade, saying no to Brussels, saying, no, we're not going to do it. I'm sorry. If you're not going to put the well-being of our country and our people first, then we will. And we're going to do what is necessary. And if you're going to attack us as a result of that, we sincerely hope that our fellow European citizens will see the justice of our cause and will stand on our side and prove that the real European Union is us, the people, and not the people in Brussels and Frankfurt. So it's this kind of realistic, simple policies that, however, unlock bigger and bigger changes. Now, I must say that what the Bremen team has been saying has been really filling me with a lot of hope and joy. And guys, I mean, I remember our first meeting a year ago when we were sitting around kind of looking at each other and we're like, is this possible? Can we even do this? You know, and look at you, right? I'm not the kind of guy to say I told you so, but I'm going to leave it there floating in the air because I kind of did tell you so. It's, you know, when that madness enters you and you start doing things, all of a sudden, a bunch of stuff that you couldn't even have imagined was possible becomes possible just because you're doing it. And by doing it, more and more doors open that you couldn't even have imagined when you set off. And I think that's an important thing to say, because there might be a lot of people watching us right now who are thinking, yeah, okay, there's something special about Bremen. Not to say you guys are not special. You're special. And we're special. But also we're not. You know what I mean? It's anybody could do this. You just need to do it. And then the DM family will be right there by your side and help you do it. Because we do need to do this everywhere. The kind of project that we've set out on, and I think this is very important, and it's easy for us here in Greece to forget it as we become bigger and bigger. I am very mistrustful personally of the kind of effect that bourgeois representative democracy can have. Because once you get part of this system and you start being in parliament and you start going to committees and you start going to votes, you think that that is the way to radical change, and it absolutely is not. It's not. This system is designed to replicate itself and to defend itself. You're not going to create radical change by going to committees. If we're serious, and this is what Yanis was hinting at the beginning of the talk, if we're serious about the kind of change that we want to do, then we will need a mass movement behind us. People who are not necessarily our members, but who have an appetite for the kind of fight that we're recommending to people, because we're recommending a fight. We are not setting out to do your run-of-the-mill political work. We're not here to play around with and tweak the system. We're here to radically change it. And to radically change it means to set out against a number of invested interests that absolutely don't want a single thing changed. And they will fight us savagely. And you're not going to be able to fight that fight if all you've got is a bunch of votes, because votes come and go once every 4 or 5 years. What you need is an invested movement that is there by your side as you fight that fight. They might not be members of MERA, they might not be candidates, but they are part of that struggle. So what we're doing needs to be rooted in society and in all these different parts of the mosaic that make up the fight that we're fighting. We're not the only ones asking for free transport in Bremen. We're not the only ones asking for environmental policies. There are other people who have been doing it for many more years than us. And we need to be part of that political ecosystem and build that kind of mass with them. And be that electoral edge through the meras, yes, that's our part to this ecosystem. But we need to be rooted in the bigger project. Otherwise, they're going to eat us alive. They're going to crush us, you know, and that is the bigger fight. And that is what I'm afraid here in Greece, because we get so caught up in the regular campaigning that I just want to make sure that we don't forget how important what you guys are doing is. That really is so much closer to our radical heart and soul as a movement. Your kind of campaigning, the way you represent what it is that we're trying to do. And yeah, I mean, the last thing I wanted to say is about having the right idea, which you all mentioned. Even if you feel like that idea, it might not be its time, it's important to say it regardless. If you're convinced of the idea, if you know that the idea is correct, and this is something we talked about in the DM Academy, because down the line, something might happen that, again, you couldn't even have predicted. It was impossible to know. But that event might make your idea obvious all of a sudden to a bunch of people. And they will recognize that you've been saying it all along. You are the party that was warning and was preparing people about this thing that has now happened, whether it's climate change, whether it is whatever. So something happens and, you know, free public transport becomes the obvious choice for Bremen. And you are that party that was saying it all along. Don't play that cynical political game, I think, of trying to go any way the wind blows and just say whatever people are saying right now, just because that is the way to get votes today. Play the long game. You know, play the game about 4 years from now, 10 years from now. Be true to kind of what, that's how you build a real movement that is honest to itself and is solid and is not going to break under pressure. And that is how, once you do get to power, I think, you're in a much safer place, because you have made it to that place of power with your original program of what you were saying all along, and you meant it. So now that you're in power, you didn't sacrifice those points to get there, and you have a much stronger base from which to implement that program than you would have done if you were playing that cynical game, promising everything to everyone and the rest of it. That's it for me. I don't have anything else. Thank you. It's lovely to see you all.
Thank you, Eric. Valuable lessons there. Wonderful. We are at the top of the hour, but if we can extend just a little bit, we've got two more comments. First, Lucas Febraro, our communications director, based in Berlin, who's also been very active on the Bremen campaign. Lucas.
Thanks, Madden. Actually, I'm one of the few of us here who has been lucky enough to witness firsthand not only the campaign in Bremen, but also what's going on in Greece. So the two things we're talking about today. I just, like some of us here, I've just come back from Athens, where I was there for a wonderful DiEM25 Academy, in which, you know, dozens of people, not just us here from the DiEM team, but also DMers from all over Europe, joined for a series of events and workshops, and also to join Meta25 Greece on the streets as they near the end of this electoral period. And in Bremen, you know, it's been my absolute privilege to be there on the ground, on the streets with Jan, with Leander, with Anya, with Norma, and the rest of the team, to try to help them as best as possible to make this happen. And as we near the end here, not only the live stream, but also of those two campaigns, especially the one in Bremen, you know, what have we accomplished here? You know, what's the significance of this? I think it's important for us to keep this in mind. As we alluded to in the beginning, Madden, it has a very historic element to it. This is the first time that a left-wing political project is running in different national elections at the two different countries, basically at the same time, right? And like Jan also alluded to, I think what we've accomplished here is we've planted these seeds. And I think, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, once this has grown and flourished, as we all hope that it will, I think we'll be looking back to this moment, and then it maybe will be clear to us with a little bit of distance just how significant this was. And I think ultimately, the really valuable thing that we've done in planting these seeds is to respond in kind to a message that was sent by the powerful, by the oligarchy, you know, quite some time ago. Their message was, we don't care about borders. You know, they have no respect for borders. Their assets, their money, it moves freely across borders. They will take money that they've made speculating in one country or in some other shady way or exploitative way. They'll take it to a different country, to your country. They'll buy up your apartment building, and then they will exploit that as well, right? And exploit you. So they have no respect for borders. And I think the reply that we've sent here is, we're over borders either. We don't care much for them. We care for them as little as you do. And we're ready to join forces from Bremen to Berlin to Athens to Thessaloniki to Rome to Milan, and who knows where else in the future. And we told them, you know, we're coming from the smallest local council to the biggest of parliaments. We're coming.
I like it. Thank you, Lucas. Let's close with Juliana Zeta, who is a spokesperson for Mera25 in Germany. Juliana. Oh, I'm losing the power of speech here. That's what happens when we go over the hour. Juliana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mehran. So yeah, I don't want to repeat anything. I think everything possible has been said. I just want to, at the end, add two things. One is, of course, a huge thank you to the people in Bremen, and of course to the people who supported from around. But I think without your trust and without your work, none of this could have been possible. Also, as Eric mentioned, me, Eric, Johannes, I can very well remember where we started, and I just saw you last weekend, and I think the transformation has been huge in terms of, thinking about how this could be, and then everything, all the actions, to see them play out, the projection on the huge building, standing there with you guys and seeing that was just an amazing moment. And I think the journey of Mera25 in Germany is young still, but this is for sure a milestone, like it has been mentioned. And what really, and this is the second point I want to say, what I really realized is that, of course, new parties come up once in a while, also in Germany. But the special thing about us is that we are a full-fledged party, that we have policies that, most parties, they get created, they start very small and they have to work on having content. But we, as a movement, we always had strong policies. And now to see them kind of manifest into this party and to be electable, because this is something that is new, that before we pushed as a movement other parties to adopt our policies, and now those policies are out there and we have people representing them, and people like Jan, recording videos, talking about these issues, real people, as I think it has been already said, and not politicians, not people who are, they're in for the political game, but people who can say, okay, I'm a citizen of the city. I'm standing here with these ideas and I'm presenting them to people, and I'm doing that without any, I'm not shying down from standing here and standing up for myself and for other people. And I think the resonance has been amazing. I haven't seen one person on the street who was like, oh no, a small party. It was very interesting for the people to see a party with so much content and so much policy already, because this is not where usually small parties start. And this is also one additional seed that we have planted, is for people to have like this feeling of hope that, hey, there might be someone to show up and really be electable. So yeah, a huge thank you from to the Bremen team from me, and good luck to you, to all of us for next Sunday, and also to Greece for the elections and for the rest of the campaign. Yeah, that's it from me.
Thank you, Juliana, and we're truly out of time. So on that, we will close. Thank you to everyone who came here to join us, especially to the Bremen team, who I know are right in the middle of campaigning and don't have that much time. I know the Bremen team are right now moving into another live stream in German, and there's a link in the chat for any German speakers that would like to join that. And thank you to all of you out there for your support. We could not do it without you. We could not stick it to the oligarchy without you. We have no big funders. We have no deep-pocketed paymasters, no shadowy foundations that we owe favors to. We're a movement for you, for the many. And if you'd like to join DiEM25 or donate DiEM25 to DiEM25, €5 a month or whatever you can afford, then just head over to diem25.org/join and you can become a member in a couple of minutes. Thank you again to our panel and to you out there who are watching live. Good luck to our campaigning teams, and we'll see you at the same time, the same place, 2 weeks from now.